Hello. So we've got the new hair under the dry turban. I guess if you want to see how the color turned out, you're going to have to come to office hours or wait until the videos for next week. So I'm here to talk to you about Vinegar and Char and kind of how to move through thinking about this as we start to think about Artifact 2. So I've got a little post-it here. This is my way to cheat while on video, but I guess I'm not really cheating. I wanted to start in talking about this book by reading the poem where we get the title, Vinegar and Char. If you want to come with me on this, it is on page 92, and it's also the last poem in the book. And this is by Jake Adam York. Grace. Because my grandmother made me the breakfast her mother made her, when I crack the eggs, pat the butter on the toast, and remember the bacon to cast iron, to fork, to plate, to tongue, my great-grandmother moves my hands to whisk, to spatula, to biscuit ring, and I move her hands too, making her mass, so the syllable of batter I'll find tomorrow beneath the fridge. And the strew of salt and oil are all memorials, like the pan-fried chicken that whistles in the grease, in the voice of my best friend's grandmother, like a midnight mockingbird. And the smoke from the grill is the smell of my father coming home from the furnace, and the tang of vinegar and char is the smell of Birmingham, the smell of coming home, of history, redolent as the salt of black and white film when I unwrap the sandwich from the wax paper crackling like the cold grass along the Selma to Montgomery Road, like the foil that held Medgar's last meal, a square of tin that is just the ghost of that barbecue. I can imagine to my tongue when I stand at the pit with my brother and think of all the hands and mouths and breaths of air that sharpened this flavor and handed it down to us. I feel all those hands inside my hands when it's time to spread the table linen or lift a coffin rail. And when the smoke blows from the pit, I think of my uncle. I think of my uncle rising, not falling. When I raise the buttermilk and the cornmeal to the light before giving them to the skillet. And sometimes I say the recipe to the air, and sometimes I say his name or her name, and sometimes I just set the table because meals are memorials that teach us how to move. History moves in us as we raise our voices and then our glasses. To pour a little out for those who poured out everything for us. We pour ourselves for them so they can eat again. I don't have goosebumps, you have goosebumps. I'm not crying, you're crying. And sometimes I say his name or her name or her name. Say her name, right? There's something very timely and emotional for me in this, in thinking about everyone who is pouring out everything for us right now. There's so many people working so hard to keep us all together, and it's so hard to find a way for me personally, I'm speaking for me, that feels adequate in showing gratitude and in showing thanks. So this ends at the place of take small moments to honor people, you know, honor your ancestors' hands in your hands when you do things, like setting a table or cooking a meal or doing a small domestic act of kindness that is really a big act of kindness and love. So the title, Vinegar and Char, is coming from this poem. If there was a poem that's summing up everything about food and love and history and connection, I think it might be Grace. It might be that. And the title, out of the line, the smoke from the grill is the smoke of my father coming home from the furnace, and the tang of vinegar and char is the smell of Birmingham, the smell of coming home. Vinegar and char. This is the smell of barbecue sauce, okay? This book could be called Barbecue Sauce. That could be the title of the collection. Vinegar, because barbecue sauces do have a vinegar base to them, and char to refer to the cooking of the meat on barbecue. And as many of us have learned in exploring information for Artifact 1, we know that barbecue is a cooking method that came out of cooking practices of Native Americans, and particularly, like, if we're thinking about tribes that are kind of located from around the creek down, so like the areas where we have mound building civilization mapped out. There's, I think, some references on that in Bloomsbury if you want to get the sense of the area that we're talking about here, which is now the eastern United States down through the South and through Latin America and South America, right? That's where barbecue came from. It came from the land that we're settled on, if we're in Georgia, lands that we're settled on now. And the way this book, putting us in place of the place of barbecue, reminding us that barbecue is different based on the cooking style and based on if it's sweet or if it's tangy, that puts us in different places too. So this book that puts us in place by using food to put us in our geographic considerations for place, it's divided into 3 sections. So each section has a collection of poetry that is working around the same kind of idea. And this comes from the pretext material on page 2. In the first section, we map lands inflected both by honest harvest and industries built on each other's backs. We confront killing what we wish to consume, animal, vegetable, or legume. Okay, so this is dealing with processing. Section 1 is about processing food and all of the different ways that processing can be a complicated topic. The second section examines modes of engagement fostered by food, friendship, lust, justice, commerce. Modes of engagement fostered by food. What kind of connections were able to be made because of food? And when we're talking about connections, that means from ideological to geographic or interpersonal, of course, but this also means throughout time and from these pockets to each other. So a connection between time and place, or a connection between time and a certain event. Right, so think about interdisciplinarily for this section here, section 2. Okay, the different modes of engagement. Get creative thinking about that. The third section recognizes how a meal provides for connection and communion, whether sincere or ironic. So section 3, this is about meals. Oh, hello. Who knows the word meal? Who knows that word? I love you. You're so good. You're a good boy. You want to come up? Come on up. Come on up. So what I would like to do is I would like to have us go through one poem from each section. I'm going to do the teacher thing. I'm going to read it and then say a couple things and move on. I've tried so hard to pick my honest favorite poems from each section. I don't know if I did it right. He doesn't know either. Let me get the jar of dog treats to keep this quiet for a second. So if you need to pause or take a moment to look at something that was just talked about in the video, pause now. Okay, so if you've been to office hours, you know this is the magic jar that makes the Caleb very, very happy. Come here. Sit. Good boy. Take this for inspiration if you need it. If you want to write a poem about a teacher in a turban feeding her scrappy little dog scraps from a pickle jar. Do you like that poem? Okay. So the first poem that we're gonna get into is How to Kill a Hog by Rebecca Gale Howell. And this poem is a little brutal. It's a little brutal, but it makes me feel things about food and about what production for food means. And kind of also, it makes me think about what Wendell Berry was asking us to do when we think about our relationship in all of the agricultural acts and choices that we make. How to Kill a Hog. Do you remember how close you were to her when she was furrowing and she needed you? Her bawling, drawing you out of bed, a bad dream. How you washed her vulva, soft warm water, over your own hands. How you scrubbed even your fingernails, under your fingernails, before you came to the pen, and the sunflower oil you coated yourself in so she would not chafe, even as she hemorrhaged. And how against all this bloody shit and hay, you took each piglet out of her night and into yours, into your palm, and cleared its mouth, its nose of mucus. How you brought breath to each set of tiny lungs. How you washed. How you opened her. That is how to touch her now. Once she is hung and cut, straight cut from rectum to neck, while the other men take their cigarettes, find quick coffee, food, lag behind, wait until the barn is empty, until you are alone, then step inside her, your arms inside her. Death like it is a room, your private room, peculiar and clean. Gather her organs up into your arms, like you once did your mother's robes when you were a boy who knew nothing but the scent of sweat and silk. Hold her and inhale before reaching all the way around to snip the last tendon, before you cut the stomach, intestines, kidney, liver, before you cut her heart out and she drops into you and drops down into the cold wash tub of this day. Close your eyes just once. Just once. Do not turn away. And she drops into you, right? That's the way that some memories happen, right? They drop into us. The experience is so heavy, it drops into us, and I will use the emphasis of my weighted blanket here. It drops. These things drop into us. Oh, I'm sorry, I scared my dog with the blanket. When you have an animal, in this case a pig, that you've been with for all of its life cycle, and through birth, this person is stepping into the experience as they're stepping into this body, right? And likewise, that experience is dropping in here. So that is section 1, my favorite poem from there. Section 2, so to remind ourselves, section 2 examines modes of engagement fostered by food. Modes of engagement fostered by food. Come here, dog. I'm just stalling because I don't want to pick a favorite one. Okay. I'm gonna go with food stamps. This one is also very intense. I think I like the intense ones. And in terms of what's the engagement that is being fostered by food here, another way to ask that question is, what situation is happening as a result of food? What situation is happening as a result of food? Food stamps. Ma'am, I am standing directly on the yellow line. The line looks backward and ahead. Cars drive through me because I am thinking right here in the middle of Needmo Street, listening to myself being crushed underfoot. I will move. I will scrape myself from the pavement when I am less busy. I will walk to grandma's in summertime and curl my hair with hot comb heat. I will chew bacca and dip snuff because I always wanted caramel spit. I will dance in my bag of secrets because poetry is a thinking woman's job, like welfare is poetry, and waiting in wick lines is too. Ma'am, poetry don't ask for a thinking woman's income, so why the hell do you? This is pointing us to, of course, the food situation made possible by inequality, by poverty, by food apartheid. He agrees. This is the worst behavior. I need to not reinforce the barking at all. In situations of food apartheid, systemic problems of not having access to food, that is not the fault of individuals. People are not poor because they are bad. They have not caused poverty. There's a stereotype of the idea being if you do everything right, you won't be poor. So if you're poor, you've done things wrong. And that is not a good thing to feel and to have the world put on any person. That's awful. But that's what comes with the stigma for individuals using EBT or using WIC or other assistance programs. And it shouldn't be, I think from like a human point of view, it shouldn't be that you need to prove your income to be able to eat. Food should be a human right. I think in the same way that self-expression needs to be a human right. So in asking, poetry doesn't care about my income, why should you? We're being prompted to think about the situation of food access that has put us to a place where people have to prove that they're worthy of being able to eat. I'm having trouble talking about this quickly because it doesn't seem logical, so I get stuck. I just get stuck. And I'm working on not getting stuck because that doesn't make any productive change happen. The situation that food has made the occasion for in this poem is asking us, aren't we just more than people toiling away? Like, what are people for? What Barry said. Are we just to work to make enough income so we qualify for some food, but not too much income because then we can't get assistance that we need. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, and it's not a great way to build community resiliency by focusing on community assistance and government assistance from a deficit-based point of view as opposed to an asset-based point of view, right? So thinking about, yes, people are worth it. People are supposed to live. People are meant to be alive. Not that people need to prove that they should be treated like people. Economics should not go into that. And if you can prove your humanity by feeling anything, thinking maybe, I don't know. I don't think that cognition is what defines humanity. Like, you can not have cognitive function, I think, and be human, and also, like my dog, you can have cognitive function and also not be human. But in terms of the profession that we're talking about here of being a poet, you don't need to prove your worth to do that job. You don't need to prove your worth to think. You can be a thinking person who is working on emancipating your community and taking care of everybody that you love. You can do that without having to prove that you're valuable, because you already are. You already are valuable. So that's why that poem is my favorite in that section, thinking about it in terms of what has food given us as an occasion. And as an occasion, food gives us a much bigger way to think about how humans in the world work together. Is that a good little piece? Yeah. Okay. Now the third section. The third section recognizes how a meal provides for connection and communion, whether sincere or ironic. This is easy. This is an easy pick for me. So when I first heard about this collection, it was released in Gravy, which I'll add a link to with this video. Gravy is the publication that gets put out by the Southern Foodways Alliance, which put together this collection. And they had some selections that went into that publication to kind of let everybody know what was coming with this book. And I read the title of this one, and I fell in love. Why I Can't Cook for Your Self-Centered Architect Cousin. I have nothing against architects. I love architects. I am Team Ted Mosby. I'm not Team Ted Mosby. I'm really not. But I'm Team Architects. But this is talking about a specific archetype. This is talking about a person who is engaging in the arts from a point of view of being self-centered, right? I mean, how many how many awesome self-centered people are you just like, yes, you are so self-centered, I love being around you. So it's not that the architect is really what matters here. It's not that the cousin part really matters here. It's the self-centered part, okay? And this is one of those poems where there is a little bit of irony going on. Why I can't cook for your self-centered architect cousin. Because to me, a dinner table's like a bed. Without love, it's all appetite and stains. Let's buy takeout for your cousin or order pizza, his toppings, but I can't lift a spatula to serve him what I am. Instead, invite our favorite misfits over. I'll feed Shaggy Otis, who after filet mignon raised his plate and sipped Merlot sauce with such pleasure, my ego pardoned his manners. Or I'll call Mimi, the chubby librarian who paused over tiramisu. I haven't felt so satisfied since, and then cried into its curls of chocolate. Or Randolph might stop by, who once, celebrating his breakup with the vegetarian, so packed the purse seam of his wiry body with shrimp, he unbuttoned his jeans and spent the evening crouched, waiting for the swelling to go down. Or maybe I'll just cook for us. I'll crush pine nuts, unhinged from the cone's prickly shingles. I'll whittle the Parmesan, and if I grate a knuckle, he just knocked the phone. Bad dog. And if I grate a knuckle, it's just more of me and my cooking. I'll disrobe the garlic cloves of rosy sheaths, thresh the basil till moist, and liberate the oil. Then I'll dance that green joy through the fettuccine. A tumbling, leggy dish will imitate after dessert if my embrace detects the 5 pounds you win each year. You will merely seem a generous portion. And if you bring my hand to your lips and smell the garlic that lingers, that scents the sweat you lick from the hollows of my clavicles, you're tasting the reason I can't cook for your cousin. My saucy, strongly seasoned love. Right? If you cook with love, if you're cooking with love, you can't cook for somebody who's self-centered. It's just like, it's gonna just turn out, right? Because you gotta cook with love to make it taste good. That's what that meal is about. So my dog has feelings that this video needs to stop, so this video is going to stop. I'm going to release the last treat and say goodbye. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye.